Hey, welcome back, my digital friends. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to find outliers in our data. The definition of an outlier is an extreme value in a data set that varies far from the other data. We've already loaded a big data set into Tableau. We used the Austin police data from 2014, and we're going to use that and see if we can't find an outlier in that data. So the first thing we want to do is look down at the bottom, and you're going to see two different boxes. The first one up at the top right here is the box called dimensions. Dimensions are normally names of categories. They're normally text, they're strings, and below that they're measures. And measures are normally numbers, i.e. they're things that can be measured. Well, luckily for us, Tableau has already determined what's a dimension and what's a measure in our big data set. So we're going to look for an outlier, and what we're going to do is we're going to base it on the number of records that we have. So down here you'll see measure values, you'll see number of records. Why don't we go ahead and double click number of records? And it's going to bring it over here into a graph. And we're going to see that the amount of data that we have in this big data set is 39,952 different crimes that were committed in Austin in the year 2014. Okay, that's a start, but that doesn't really tell us anything. So we need to be a lot more specific in order to find an outlier. So if you go up to dimensions up here, remember dimensions are normally named categories. One of those categories is highest offense description. So this is going to be the type of crime that's going to be committed. I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over into this box called filters. And when I do that, it's going to pop up with this menu. And it's going to list all the different types of crime that were reported. So why don't we look at a specific type of crime? Let's look at burglary of a residence. So I'm going to click that dialog box right there, that check box, and I'm going to hit apply. And when I do that, it's going to tell me that of all the records in Austin, 3,978 were in fact burglaries. So really what we need to do here is we need to slice up this number somehow. We need to determine if there is in fact an outlier amongst burglaries of residences. And maybe one way that we can sort that is by where they take place, their zip code. So if you look over here, you'll see under one of the dimensions is location or zip code, and you'll see a little globe next to it, which means it can be mapped. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over into the column section. We're going to create columns of this data based on the zip code. So when I do that, all of a sudden, all this data is sliced up by zip code. Over here, next to where it says number of records, if I hover over that, I'm going to see a little box, a little button that I can click right here. And if I do that, that's going to sort my data. So I'm going to click that, and you're going to notice that it sorts it from greatest to least. Well, if we take a look at this data, it doesn't take very long to notice that one zip code out of all of them in the city of Austin seems to have a considerable amount more burglaries than the others. And looking down here at the bottom, that's going to be 78741. So it looks like we found ourselves an outlier. So something else we can do with Tableau is we can add some color perhaps to this if we'd like. So over here you'll notice that there's some different boxes that allow you to add different features to your graph and your data. So let's color this, and let's base our coloring on the amount of records that are in the police database. So I'm going to grab number of records over here again. I'm going to drag it over to color. And what it's going to do is it's going to create this color, kind of color gradient for me. Now green is normally a color that's associated with positive things. So in this case, I don't want the darkest green to be the highest number of burglaries. That just doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm going to change it to maybe a more red color. So if I go over here and I click the down arrow, I can edit the colors. And when I do that, there's several different types of gradients that I can use. And I'm going to use a red-green diverging color. And when I click apply, you're going to see that it does in fact color it, but it did it in reverse. We obviously want, it's good when there's less burglaries, so we want the lowest values down here to be green, and we want the highest values to be red. That's pretty easy to fix. We just hit the reversed checkbox right here, and we apply that again, and now you'll see that my graph has a nice gradient according to color. Now, I'm ready to use this graph right here in my TEDx kind of talk to be able to talk about why I think that 78741 might in fact be an outlier in terms of property crime, specifically burglaries. Now, I may have to do a little research on my own to be able to determine why this one zip code seems to be so much more represented in this crime category than the others. So that's up to you to determine. But Tableau at least allowed me to make sense of that huge amount of records in a pretty quick amount of time to actually be able to find that outlier. So the actual analysis of why 78741 is the most commonly burglarized zip code in Austin is up to you to determine. So that's going to require a little research on your part. So now, my digital natives, your task is going to be to take this 2014 City of Austin crime data and to be able to find another outlier within it. There's several different ways that you can go about this. One of them is that you can change the filter settings here. So instead of sorting by burglary, perhaps you can look at different types of crime. Another option for you would be to, instead of sorting your columns by zip code, perhaps you could sort them by the date that a crime takes place, or maybe even the district where a crime takes place. There's lots of options, but your task is to find another example of an outlier that is as extreme as this one, this burglary in this particular zip code. So give it a go and see what you can come up with. I'm interested always to hear about your adventures in the digital data world. So until next time, this is Eric, your course coordinator for Computer Science 302, signing out.